All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Not So Stupid podcast. Today's podcast, we're going to be breaking down supplements as a whole. So, I'm going to review not every supplement in the world because that is way too many supplements and that would take me hours to do. But I'm going to review probably the top 20. I didn't actually count how many I have, but probably going to review around 20 total supplements that are big name supplements a lot of people usually have questions about, and they are, usually the best sellers. So, we're going to break them down, identify what they are, what they're supposed to do or claim to do, and then whether or not they are worth it. So we're going to categorize them as one of three things: either essential, which means that I believe a large majority of the population, like 80-90% of people, if not 100% of people, should be supplementing this product; or optimal, which means that a minority of people that already have their nutrition in check should supplement this product. So this means that if you already do everything right, you train regularly and intensely, you have a perfect nutrition plan that you follow to a T, then adding these can take you to the next level. So this is for the top 10%, top 15% of people. And then there's frivolous, which is essentially, it's not going to hurt you, it's not necessarily going to help you, but it's probably, your money is probably better spent elsewhere. So those are going to be the three main categories: essential, optimal, or frivolous. And before we get into supplements, like I said, I'm not going to review everything. And that's because a lot of individual supplements are going to be very person specific. And that's how most supplement brandings are going to be. They're going to, what you need is going to depend on who you are, what deficiencies you have, what you're trying to accomplish, all of those variables. So specific supplements or specific micronutrient supplements, I should say, like calcium, like zinc, like magnesium, although pretty common, I'm not going to try to recommend this to everybody because those are going to really depend on the person and if they have a deficiency in those specific nutrients. So that is, kind of the direction we're heading in. More broad term supplements that probably, if you walk into Vitamin Shop, you walk into GNC, someone will try to sell you these and claim they're like the next big thing. And we're going to see whether they are the next big thing or if they're just, trying to make a quick buck on commissions for that. Now, before we get into supplements, I do want to make some things clear before I go through the entire process of breaking them down. So, supplements, as the word suggests, is a supplement to your diet. And like I mentioned earlier with the optimal uh rating for supplements that I'm going to be having, you can get everything you can get from supplements from the food that you eat. Sometimes that's really hard, and that's when supplementing is necessary. So you want to make sure that whenever possible, you're going to consume as many foods as possible, as much of a variety of foods as possible, and try to get these actual vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, micronutrients in through your food, through the actual food that you're eating. And then whatever's left over, whatever you can't quite fit in with all the food that you're eating and you're trying your best to get a good variety, then you can supplement that to your diet. So supplements are just a supplemental aspect of your nutrition program, of your diet. So I wanted to make that clear. You can't rely on any one supplement to help you. In fact, like every label that you go to for supplements will say this supplement helps in addition to good diet and training program, regular diet and exercise, something along those lines. So you need that foundation first before you can jump onto any one supplement to help push you further. Now, taking it a step further than that, I do want to say also, just a forewarning on supplements, is that supplements are not regulated by the FDA. And what that means is the Food and Drug Administration does not care about supplements in the regard that they need to check them out and make sure that they say what they need to say. So a lot of times, and this happens a lot, or this used to happen a lot, it's not really as common nowadays, but if you wanted to start a supplement company, you can literally just buy a bunch of empty bottles, buy some labeling, and throw in some sugar in an empty bottle, put whatever you want on the label, say that it does that thing, and you could sell it on shelves. No one has to check it, no one has to regulate it, no one has to make sure that what it says is accurate or is saying what it needs to say. And obviously, that's a little dangerous. So, the brand of supplement you choose makes a big difference. And we're going to go through some brands here today too for the different supplements that we might recommend. But if you're looking to do research on your own, if you're looking to, find a trustworthy brand for a supplement that maybe we're not talking about on this podcast, then you need to do one of a couple things to make sure that you're getting the right supplement. One is you can go on the label of the supplement and check if they have a third-party stamp. So it'll say third-party tested, and what third-party tested means is that the supplement company paid a third-party entity to verify that their supplements say what it does, what it says it does, and has what it says it has. So they go out of their way to verify, to make sure that you are trusting their brand. So that's actually a big thing that, shows good brand reputability, gives the brand a good reputation, is having that third-party stamp. Beyond that, you can also look for good manufacturing practices, which is also another stamp that is on the label. And that just means that they are using a facility that is approved by the FDA, not necessarily for supplements, but for anything to produce. And it's safe to consume, and everything in there is, spick and span, good to go. And then beyond that, you can check out ratings on labdoor.com or examine.com. These are supplement research websites, and they have a huge library of different supplements that they tested for verification to see if they work, to see if they have the right percentage of ingredients for what they claim to have, and grade it on a 0 to 100% scale. So if you want to see a specific brand and see how they rate, it's always best to check labdoor.com. Labdoor.com doesn't have every single supplement in the world, but they do have probably the top 50% of brands that are most sold or most commonly sold across the US. So checking out labdoor.com if you're not sure about a brand, or if you're not sure about, again, the reputability of the brand or the authenticity of the product, is going to be a good, safe way to look at whether or not you should buy that thing that you're looking to buy. All right, so some disclaimers there before we get started. And the final disclaimer, once again, is a warning for you that anytime you're thinking about doing a new supplement, always consult your doctor. It's always better to be safe than sorry, especially if you're not sure about it. I can tell you, again, this is an essential thing, but at the end of the day, if you want to be 100% sure that what you're doing is the right thing, always consult your doctor before starting, just to be safe. So all the disclaimers are gone. We got that taken care of. Now we can jump into reviewing these different kinds of supplements. The first type of supplement that we're going to be talking about is what most people think of when they hear the word supplement, and that is protein powders specifically. And there are so many types of protein powders on the market today. There's whey protein, casein protein, collagen protein, different kinds of vegan protein, so soy protein, pea protein, hemp, brown rice. All of those are the most common types of protein that you'll see in the protein aisle of your supplement store or at your gym even. Now, what do all of these proteins do, and what's the difference between them, and which one should you try to aim for? So before breaking down each individual one, protein itself is an essential nutrient. You get it from food, you get it from chicken, you get it from eggs, you get it from different kinds of lean meats and certain vegetables as well. Now, everyone's going to need protein to some degree. The more you resistance train and the more muscle you want to build, or even the more fat you want to lose in some cases, or muscle you want to maintain, the more protein you're going to need, which means sometimes it's kind of hard to eat all that protein on a daily basis. So you supplement it. That's where you're going to fill in the spots to help you reach your protein goal a lot easier. Now, which protein is going to be ideal for you? That's going to vary from person to person. So I'm going to go through the three. Actually, I'll go through four of them. I'll go through the four main types of protein, and we'll break them down one by one. So the first one, and the most popular one, is whey protein. So whey protein is a type of protein that comes from milk, and it's a milk-based protein. It's a dairy-based protein, and it is the faster digesting protein of the two proteins that come from milk, the other one being casein, which is a slower digesting protein. Now, when you go shopping for whey protein, there's going to be different kinds of whey protein. There's going to be a whey protein concentrate and a whey protein isolate. Those are going to be the two most popular ones that you'll see. The main difference is the whey protein isolate is the more pure form of protein. It's just protein in there. If you look at the nutrition label between a concentrate and a isolate brand, concentrate will likely have some grams of carbs, some grams of fat. That's because it's not fully filtered properly. Or not, I shouldn't say properly, but all the way to where only protein is left. It'll still have some excess ingredients from the milk that it's being filtered from in there. Whereas a whey isolate, it'll pretty much say just protein. It'll have like 25, 30 grams of protein, and then it'll say less than 1 gram of fat, less than 1 grams of carbs. This is important because a lot of times when you have a poorer filtered protein, like a whey protein concentrate, that's going to give you that negative digestive issues that you'll usually hear about with protein. There's a negative stigma around protein that you get protein farts, protein bubbles in your stomach. That's usually going to come from protein concentrate. It's a little harder to digest than a pure whey protein isolate. Now, whey protein, like I mentioned earlier, is a faster digesting protein as opposed to casein protein, and it absorbs into your stomach faster, and it has a higher leucine content, making it perfect for building muscle. And of course, all proteins have various amino acid profiles. Whey protein has usually the best amino acid profile for regular weightlifting, working out, that kind of thing. Now, that's why whey protein, I would say, is an essential thing to have, but you don't need to necessarily supplement. Whey protein itself is something essential that you need to consume at some capacity. Whether you get that from protein or whether you get that from regular food you're eating, it doesn't make a huge difference, but obviously getting it from a protein source or a supplemental source is going to be helpful for you. So whey protein, I would say, is an essential one. Now, going into the other types of protein, we have casein protein. And like I mentioned earlier, casein is the other type of protein that comes from milk. It is a thicker protein. It's a lot heavier because again, the molecules for that protein are larger. And when you drink casein protein, you're going to feel full pretty fast. And as a result of all of that, it is slower digesting. So casein protein is usually good situationally. So I would say it's more of an optimal thing or an it depends kind of thing. If you know you're going to go a long period of time without eating something, casein protein can be helpful for managing your appetite during that period of time while giving you protein. If you have some extra protein, this is going to be for the optimal side of things. If you're working on building muscle, you have like 220 grams of protein to eat in a day for your specific situation, and at the end of the day you want to maximize your recovery, having a casein protein shake before you go to sleep has been shown to help with better muscle protein synthesis while sleeping during the recovery. So that has a helpful benefit to it as well. It's very situational. It's not necessarily something that I would go out and buy 2 different brands of protein for, a whey protein and a casein protein, but it is something that is helpful. And again, this is more of an optimal thing. It optimizes your process. You don't need it to be successful, but it is helpful, especially if you have your diet in check. If you don't have your diet in check, then casein protein isn't going to help save you in any way, shape, or form. So casein protein is an optimal form of protein. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is collagen protein. Collagen protein has become super popular recently because its claim is to help skin and bones, help improve skin, bones, hair, and nail. So hair and nails, not just one nail. All the nails are going to get improved this way. Collagen has a lot more aesthetic benefit. It doesn't really have so much performance or recovery benefits for training. So when we think of collagen, it's mostly seen as an incomplete protein, and that's because it doesn't have a full amino acid profile that you would get from a whey protein source. And as a result of that, again, you're only going to get part of the benefits that protein would give you, and that is the aesthetic side of things. You get your hair, skin, and nails, and to some degree, depending on the type of collagen that you consume, you will get added bone health benefits to it as well. Now, collagen, again, it's raised. It's gotten more popular is what I'm trying to say. So again, it's gotten more popular. It's very much all the rage, and the marketing for it is that you want to, if you add this to your diet, you get good hair, skin, and nails. Overall, it does seem to help, but it's not a huge game changer. So when we look at collagen protein, again, it's an incomplete protein source. If you get enough protein in your day, you get your zero point 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass per day. You are getting enough protein to already benefit you, um, help benefit your hair, skin, and nails in that regard. All protein is going to help with that. It's the specific amino acids in the that make up the protein that are going to help with that. It's not necessarily collagen protein specifically. Collagen is just a specific concentration of those amino acids to help with the benefit, to help with the aesthetic benefit of that. Now, if you're, again, like I said, if you're getting enough protein from food, from a whey protein supplement at the end of the day, adding collagen isn't going to hurt you, but it won't necessarily help you dramatically either. Collagen can be helpful if you're not getting any protein at all, but I would say that's not the reason you would want to get it in the first place. So I would label collagen as optimal, and it's something that you can get on top of the protein you're already consuming, and can help you, get that extra 5%, 2% benefit to that as well. The only time I would specifically recommend a collagen protein is if you're a very large individual, morbidly obese, and you're going through a transformation change. There's been some studies to suggest that collagen can help with tightening your skin as you go through this process. This isn't like a, what's the word? I don't know the word, but this isn't something that you can make up in time. So if you already lost 50 pounds through collagen, through weight loss, and you're trying to tighten your skin after it's already gone, it's not going to help you in that way. But through the process, as you're losing all that weight and you're being mindful of tightening your skin, that can be helpful for you. So for morbidly obese individuals, really large individuals, I would recommend collagen protein to help with skin tightening. And it depends on your age as well. But as a whole, to the average person, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would definitely recommend having a optimal diet first, made up of enough protein, and then if you want to add collagen to your coffee, or buy a coffee that has collagen in it, or mix it with something else, that's perfectly fine too. So collagen is optimal. So recapping all the proteins that we talked about, whey protein I would say is essential, and then casein and collagen is optimal. So prioritizing that accordingly, make sure you get whey protein and use that to your advantage, because it's going to help you in more ways than one, as opposed to the other two that are more specific and not necessarily as helpful in a majority of situations. And I said I was going to talk about 4 proteins. The 4th protein I'm going to talk about is vegan protein. And vegan protein, just to keep it short, most plant proteins are, again, they're also not complete proteins, in the sense that with whey, it has all the essential amino acids. Plant proteins usually don't have all the essential amino acids, but most plant proteins that you find in powder form are blends of that protein. So it'll be like a pea protein mixed with brown rice protein mixed with hemp protein is pretty popular. Having those blends are always going to be better than having just one type of protein from a powder, because it's going to like cover the grounds and balance your amino acid profile that the other ones might be lacking. So if you don't want to consume dairy, if you are against against dairy and animal products, is what I'm trying to say, and you're looking to have a plant protein to supplement because you're not getting enough protein, make sure it's a plant protein blend and not a just pea protein only powder, brown rice only powder, hemp protein only powder. Make sure it's a combination of everything. So that covers protein. Going through that, definitely would recommend, if you were to have a choice, having whey protein over plant-based protein. But like I said, if you're avoiding dairy and animal products, make sure you get a blend of plant-based protein. So now, going to the next supplement, BCAAs. So BCAAs stand for branched chain amino acids, and it's 3 main amino acids. It's leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which have really good, so their main purpose is helping to increase muscle growth, improve performance, and help manage fatigue. And it's one of the best selling supplements in the world. It's the easiest thing to sell. It's usually relatively cheap. So most supplement people will push it pretty heavily. And It tastes really good. So the BCAAs have the most flavor diversity of any other supplement that I know of, and it's always the fun flavors, grape, strawberry, watermelon, all that kind of stuff. So there is a lot of research done on BCAAs and its effectiveness. And overall, again, if you are getting enough protein, the effectiveness of BCAAs is minimal, if there's any at all. So I would consider BCAAs frivolous in the sense that, again, like they're not going to help you anymore. It's not going to hurt you to have it. If you want to have good tasting water, like you can use BCAAs and it won't hurt you. But if you're getting enough protein, spending your money on BCAAs isn't going to help do anything extra for you. However, I would consider BCAAs optimal for plant-based people. So if you're a vegan, if you're a vegetarian, and you're getting most of your protein from plant sources, you might be lacking some of these amino acids. And that's the type of person that I would say you can benefit more from BCAAs, because plant-based proteins are often lower in these types of amino acids than animal proteins. So overall, if you're eating adequate protein, you don't need BCAAs, and definitely not worth the money. I would definitely recommend skipping them. Again, in the frivolous spending category. But if you are plant-based to some degree, you can find benefit from BCAAs. So frivolous for the average person. If you're plant-based, it could be optimal for you. Still not necessarily something I would prioritize. You would definitely benefit more from a plant protein powder, like we mentioned earlier, but it won't hurt per se. Now, the next one is omega-3s, and this usually comes in the form of fish oils. And for the plant-based people, it's going to be algae oil. They both are made of the same thing. They're omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-3 fatty acids is a type of fat, as I said earlier, that is really underconsumed in the entire world, honestly. So there are two main types of fats, omega-6 and omega-3. And ideally, the human diet should have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fats. But what we find in Western culture is that there is a 1-to-16 ratio, which means we're having 16 times less omega-6 than we need to have. And this is like the standard for the Western side of the hemisphere. It's actually worse than the Eastern side of the world. It's like 1-to-25 or something like that. So overall, we're not getting as much omega-3s as we need to. And we should, and this isn't to say like omega-6 is bad for you, we just need more omega-3s. So we should try to prioritize omega-3s. They have a lot of benefits, including improving skeletal muscle hypertrophy and recovery. It improves cognitive function. It improves fat oxidization, which means you use fat for fuel a lot easier. Omega-3s. It's anti-inflammatory. Let's see what else it says. It improves heart, skin, and joint health. It's really helpful with those, and bone health as well. So it has a lot of positive functions that most people need, and for that reason, for those reasons, all I named like 10 things, omega-3s are definitely essential. And I recommend this to pretty much everybody that I've ever coached to consume omega-3s. I take it daily, definitely really helpful. You notice the difference after taking it for a week if you haven't taken it before. And when you stop taking it for a period of time, you're going to notice the difference as well. So supplementing omega-3s, whether that's fish oil or algae oil, is going to be really helpful for you. Definitely highly recommend omega-3s. So that is essential. Omega-3s are essential. Next one we're going to be talking about is greens. Greens are just dried powdered vegetables and plant matter. So just literally blended up, powdered up vegetables. And what they help with is they give you a lot of plant-based micronutrients, antioxidants, phytonutrients, polyphenols that are hard to get if you don't eat a lot of vegetables. And they're usually labeled as saying they give you 2 to 3 servings of vegetables. Now, the downside to greens is that they do not give you any macronutrient value. So they won't give you any fiber that you'll get from vegetables, and that's because of how it gets broken down and processed. You're not going to get any of the fiber. You're not going to get any of the carbs or fats that you might get from most vegetables, but they are still valuable in the sense that you're going to get the micronutrients, antioxidants, and other nutrients that are really hard to get if you're not consuming enough vegetables. These are not a replacement for eating enough vegetables. And I can't stress that enough. They're not a replacement for eating enough vegetables. They are, however, kind of an insurance policy to help you get the nutrients you need that you would get from vegetables. So as a whole, I would definitely say greens powder is optimal just for itself as a nutrient perspective. But there are benefits to greens powder beyond just the actual nutrient benefits. When you drink a greens powder, a lot of times they don't necessarily taste the best, but there are better brands than other brands. But overall, they're not the tastiest. You know, you're just eating powdered vegetables, or drinking powdered vegetables, excuse me. And when you start your day with that, it puts you in a healthy mindset. So subconsciously, you're going to make better decisions for yourself when you start your day with a greens powder. And this is something I found anecdotally helpful with myself and with a lot of clients that I coach, is taking this in the morning, gives you a boost of antioxidants and micronutrients. They help wake you up with a glass when you mix it with a glass of water, and gives you a lot more energy in the day. So the benefits of it can go beyond just the nutrient profile of it if you use it in a specific way. But beyond that, a lot of greens is one thing that'll make a big difference with brand, because a lot of really common brands do proprietary blends, which means that they just literally throw together essentially grass, in your protein powder, blend it up and call it a day. You want to make sure that the label that you get the greens powder from, is fully transparent, has a breakdown of how much of each type of a nutrient that you're going to be having, or nutrient source that you're going to be having, and roll with that. Some specific ones that are always really good to have with green supplements are going to be spirulina, chlorella, matcha, alfalfa, and then any kind of pre or probiotic as well. Those are just some basic ones that most of the proprietary blends do not have. Now, yeah, I'll do recommendations actually for brands after we go through everything. So greens are going to be an optimal one. So they're not necessarily something everyone in the world should be having, even though your life would be better if you did have it. It's definitely, I would much rather you prioritize eating more greens, eating more vegetables throughout the day before consuming or thinking about adding a green supplement. It's definitely in the optimal range as opposed to a essential range. Now, the next one we're going to be covering is creatine. Creatine's a really popular one in the training space, and there's a lot of misconceptions about creatine. Creatine and omega-3s are actually like the two most heavily researched supplements, I think, ever. So there is a lot of research done. The findings of it are very conclusive. We know what it does, we know what it's good for, and how it works. And that's why I feel very confident in everything I'm about to say. So with creatine, it increases performance, increases your recovery, and decreases your time to fatigue. So the time it takes you to get tired, stop training, is longer than what you would have without it. That's the training benefit of creatine. But beyond that, it actually has a lot of cognitive benefit as well. It helps regulate your blood sugar. It helps with improving or mitigating fatty liver disease and sarcopenia as well. So there's more health benefits to it beyond just what it can help with your muscles. And for that reason, creatine is actually an essential nutrient in my mind. It's often seen as something only the bodybuilder should take, or something that is meant just for people trying to get jacked, that kind of thing. But it's really for everybody. Whether you work out or not, you're going to find benefit in creatine. Creatine you can get from usually animal proteins. Red meat animal protein sources are going to have enough creatine for you on a daily basis. If you take enough of that, supplementing another 5 grams isn't going to hurt you, and that's usually the recommended dose. You would usually see some benefit from it if you're doing that. One thing to note about creatine, and this is kind of like a myth-busting thing, is that creatine leads to water retention, right? And it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't at the same time. So it leads to water retention, but specifically water retention in your muscles if you train regularly. So your muscles will get a little more pump from them. So Most people see this as a negative for some reason, but when you think about it, you're going to look more toned if your muscles are pumped up and you're holding water in those muscles. The scale might go up half a pound or something like that, but you're going to look better when you consume creatine and you retain water in your muscles. Now, when you take creatine regularly, or the effects of it are going to diminish and you're going to look normal again. This is something that you'll usually experience early on in taking it. But once again, creatine is essential. Definitely recommend it for everybody. And it's more than just helping your muscles out. It helps your brain, it helps your body, it helps it everything. Now going into the next one. Next one is pre-workout. So pre-workout are, again, super popular. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of different pre-workout brands out there, and all the bro lifters are gonna want the most extreme thing that's gonna cause you to twitch. The women out there aren't gonna want to have their skins creepy crawling, but most of the time, pre-workout is a mix of caffeine or some other stimulant. It's usually caffeine and ergogenic aids. So those are going to be things like beta-alanine and citrulline. Those are the most popular ones. Now, pre-workout isn't a necessity. I would say it's optimal at best. So I usually like to use it situationally. And it's definitely going to help give you a boost of energy if you just had a long day of work, you're really tired, you need to go to the gym, but you don't have the energy to drag yourself to the gym. Taking a scoop of pre-workout will help you. The issue I would say, is use it as needed or use a low stimulant pre-workout, because if you have a high stimulant pre-workout, if you have one that has a lot of caffeine and you're taking it at 7 p.m. at night to work out before you go to sleep, you're going to stay up at night. You're going to be wired because you just took a bunch of caffeine. So taking a low stimulant one will help shift it from being something that's going to just wake you up blindly to be something that will help your muscles perform well and recover well. So pre-workout, again, is going to be a optimal one or a situational one. So it's not even something I would say you need to use on a daily basis, but use it as needed for yourself. What to look for in a good pre-workout is, again, like depending on when you take it, the level of caffeine will differ for what you need. If you take it first thing in the morning, caffeine doesn't really matter. If you take it later in the evening after work, I would say be mindful of the caffeine content. Other things to look for in pre-workouts is going to be L-citrulline, beta-alanine, and creatine as well, or some sort of amino acid profile. Not going to get into all of those specifically. Just know that if you're looking for a pre-workout, that is going to be the optimal pre-workout that you will want to go for. So that is pre-workout. It is optimal. Next thing is vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is an essential nutrient in the body. And vitamin D deficiency is super common in our modern society because we spend so much time indoors. We spend a lot of time covered up. We don't usually get sun on our skin. And especially in the winter months, you are more prone to vitamin D deficiency because it's usually cloudy. I'm in Chicago and I don't think I've seen the sun directly in 2 months. So definitely vitamin D deficient. That's when vitamin D supplementation is going to be most important. But getting into more of what vitamin D does and what it's helpful for, it plays a huge role in your mood, your bone health, your strength, your immunity. And again, getting into the deficiency level, I think the most recent study that I've read says that over 40% of the population is deficient in vitamin D. And not just deficient, mildly deficient. It doesn't even cover that. It's really needs to supplement vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D is usually one of the things your doctor checks for if you go up to your annual checkups. And they'll usually prescribe you something really strong if you're super deficient, but they won't prescribe you something if you have a mild deficiency. You'll still feel the negative effects of it, which is mood changes, constant muscle soreness, more fatigue, more joint pain if you're deficient, but they won't intervene with supplementation or prescription until it gets really out of hand. Now, everything I said is, pointing in the direction that vitamin D is an essential nutrient. Again, it is super important to have. It is something that's very commonly, most people are deficient in. The dosage, I would say, will vary depending on your need, depending on the type of job you have, depending on how often you're outside, depending on what kind of foods you eat. Some dairy products, some poultry products like eggs will have some vitamin D in it. If you consume those regularly, you won't be as deficient as someone else. But I would say supplementing vitamin D is an essential thing that most people will need to do. So vitamin D is essential. Too many benefits to let go of, and honestly, your life really does improve. A lot of the symptoms of seasonal depression overlap with vitamin D deficiency. So in the winter months, again, when you're not getting as much sunlight as you should, or can, I should say, a lot of people swing to seasonal depression as the cause of that. But a majority of the time, I don't want to say every time because it is a real thing that people experience, but majority of the time, vitamin D deficiency is going to be the cause. And if you supplement vitamin D, you can see a huge alleviation of those symptoms that led you to believe you had some seasonal depression. So vitamin D supplementation essential, especially in the winter months. Electrolytes. So electrolytes are, most commonly found in Gatorade, I would say. But Gatorade is depending on the type of Gatorade you get, they have like 50 different kinds now, is, a lot of sugar as well. It's made for athletes and people that train regularly are going to be sweating all the time. And that's when electrolytes are going to be really valuable because they're minerals that are vital for hydration, muscle concentration, and pH regulation. So if you're consuming a lot of water regularly, and a lot of water, by the way, means like 2, 3, 4 gallons a day. If you're drinking a gallon a day, you're probably going to be fine. But if you're drinking an excessive amount of water, you're going to need a lot of electrolytes to balance your pH. Or I shouldn't say a lot of electrolytes. You're going to need electrolytes in general to balance your pH. Otherwise, you can, in extreme situations, die from overconsumption of water. And again, that's extreme. That's like drinking 40 gallons of water without having any electrolytes alongside that. So the most common electrolytes and minerals in electrolytes are going to be sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. And each of those have different functions that are going to be helpful to you in different ways. But more often than not, if you have general electrolyte deficiency, what you're going to experience is fatigue, cramping, headaches, just tiredness. What else? Just irritability, maybe a lot of twitching and quaking with your muscles. Those are all going to be really common with electrolyte deficiencies. So all of those can happen with individual nutrient deficiencies. If you have a specific calcium deficiency, you're going to need calcium supplementation. If you have a specific magnesium deficiency, you're going to need a specific magnesium supplementation. That's something, again, that's going to be best suited for you and your doctor to work around. But electrolytes are optimal, I would say, if I were to rate them. They're really helpful for people that do train a lot, do train regularly, do sweat very often, and need a lot of water in their day. If you're not training multiple times a week, sweating all the time, I wouldn't say you need electrolytes. You need to supplement electrolytes. You can get this pretty easily from food. But if you train regularly, you want to get the most out of your training, you already have a really good diet in place, you just want to take it to the next level, throwing some electrolytes in your water can be really helpful for you. So electrolytes are optimal. Now, what do we got next? Okay, we got L-Theanine. So L-Theanine is also one that's becoming really popular more recently, and it's an amino acid that's usually found in tea. And we both know, I'm having a conversation with you specifically, you right now, we both know that coffee and tea both have caffeine in it. But when you think about wanting to be awake and alert, you go to coffee. When you think about wanting to be calm and relaxed, you go to tea. And the reason for that is because tea has L-Theanine in it, and it has a lot of relaxing properties to it and can help manage stress. So L-Theanine is found as a standalone supplement a lot of times, but it's also found in a lot of sleep aids that put a lot of things together, like melatonin, magnesium, glycine, GABA, things like that, and make a good sleep supplementation altogether. Overall, this is something that is very individual. I would say it's frivolous to the average person, but if you're somebody that is very jittery, someone that has maybe a lot of stress, you're very I don't want to say the word anxiety, but you're very anxious in general, without a diagnosis, you can benefit from this as something to help you wind down and manage your stress throughout the day. But again, for the average person, I would say this is just frivolous for the most part. So yeah, that is L-Theanine. Very quick breakdown of that. All right, the next one we got here is going to be CBD, which might not be one you would expect on a fitness podcast, but it is a really popular supplement. It's obviously gained a lot of popularity throughout the country as legalization becomes more popular. But for the people that don't know, CBD is a cannabinoid. It's actually the most abundant cannabinoid in cannabis, in marijuana, and it has a lot of benefits in terms of stress relief, managing inflammation, managing pain, managing anxiety. Those have been researched mostly in animals and have been obviously measured anecdotally through the general population to show those benefits. Now, this is something that I would again say is dependent on the person. Overall, I would consider it frivolous for the most part, but if you have tried everything and have literally tried everything, not just said you've tried everything, in terms of managing your stress, managing your anxiety, you're always overwhelmed with work and you can't do anything about it, this can be a helpful aid for you in that regard. Especially if you struggle with winding down at night and trying to get to sleep, this can also be helpful for you in that sense as well. So I would consider CBD frivolous, but it's not, again, like with all the other frivolous ones, they're not completely useless. It very much depends on the context and who it's for as a whole. Next one we got here is going to be glutamine, and glutamine is also an amino acid. It's an essential amino acid, meaning that you need to consume it. Your body doesn't make enough of it, so you need to actually get it from your diet. It's essential for you to get in your diet. And a few years back, even as recently as like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people were saying that glutamine is one of the essential building blocks of your muscles, and you need it to build muscle. Otherwise, you won't be able to, you will limit your growth and your muscles won't get as big as they could be. This is mostly for bodybuilding people here. We found more recently in more recent studies that overall it's not that true. It's not the most important one for muscle development or muscle building. That's going to be leucine more than anything. Glutamine isn't going to hurt to have, and it's not like it's completely useless in that regard for muscle building, but it's not as magical as people used to tout it. It used to be like up there with creatine in terms of how good it is for your muscles. That is not the case, we know now. But glutamine does have really good function for your intestinal health and your immune health. So those systems, your digestive health and your your digestive system and your immune system, use glutamine as their main preferred fuel source rather than glucose. So if you have glutamine, backtrack that. If you have digestive issues a lot of times, or if you're sick pretty frequently, I would say like supplementing glutamine is something I like to do, particularly with people that have trouble with digesting certain foods or have trouble having regular bowel movements. Glutamine is a helpful supplement for that regard. So overall, glutamine is optimal. I would say it's not something to prioritize. It's not an essential nutrient. You don't need to go out and buy it. I mean, it's not essential in the regards that everyone needs to have it. You would likely get this from meat, eggs, and any type of dairy protein. They're going to have glutamine in it. But if you're plant-based, it becomes essential. And if you have digestive issues, I would consider supplementing glutamine to help with that, to help move things along a lot easier. So as a whole, as a supplement itself, I would say it's optimal for sure. For specific situations, it becomes more on the essential side, but I wouldn't call it essential per se. So that is glutamine, also a really popular one. Next one we got is going to be multivitamins. So multivitamins are, as the word suggests, a multitude of vitamins, and they're kind of more of a safety net than anything. There's a lot of different multivitamins out there that have all kinds of different combinations of vitamins. They're not all the same, but I'm always hesitant to ever recommend a multivitamin. And the reason being is if you have a specific vitamin deficiency, multivitamins aren't really going to help with that. So if you have a zinc deficiency, usually what would be recommended for you is to have 30 to 45 milligrams of zinc daily. Now, multivitamins are never going to have that much zinc in them. They're never going to have that much of any one particular vitamin because it's trying to get a combination of things all together. So it'll have 2 to 5 milligrams at best. right? Now, so if you have a specific deficiency in one micronutrient, multivitamins aren't going to cut it. You're going to need to supplement that specific micronutrient. Likewise, if you feel like you do need more diversity in your nutrients, I would definitely go with a greens powder first before I would go with a multivitamin. And that's just my personal recommendation on that. So as a whole, multivitamins are kind of like a greens powder in the sense that they are a safety net. They're an insurance policy to get your vitamins. For a huge majority of people, they're not going to be worth the money. I definitely consider multivitamins frivolous. Like if you need to pick between multivitamin and greens, definitely recommend greens if you're looking to optimize something. If you're deficient in something, you want to get more of that, definitely buy that specific nutrient as a supplement instead. Don't opt for the multivitamin. They're not going to help you too much. And again, if you are getting a diverse diet, you're having a good number of servings of fruit and vegetables a day, as you should be, then you really don't need it that much. If you're not doing that, then you should start doing that before you even consider doing a multivitamin, because that's the benefits of it are going to be minimal, if there are going to be any at all for you. So diet first, then greens, and then maybe multivitamins. But I really wouldn't consider wasting your money on multivitamins. So frivolous at best is multivitamins. The next one we got is melatonin. And melatonin for a lot of people is synonymous with sleep. If you have trouble sleeping, you're going to want to take melatonin. The thing is, melatonin is a sleep initiator only. So if you have trouble staying asleep, it's not really going to help you in that regard. Melatonin will help get you to sleep. It'll help start the sleep process for you. But once the sleep has initiated, melatonin has done its job, you'll still wake up if that's what you struggle with. So if you struggle with getting to sleep, maybe melatonin can be helpful. But I would definitely recommend so many other things before I would ever recommend melatonin to somebody. And the reason being is because for most people, melatonin is a cop-out to get easier sleep. It gets you out of doing the important stuff. It gets you out of having a regular sleep schedule. It gets you out of having a wind down routine, avoiding screens later in the day. It gets you out of actually relaxing, getting your body to relax. It's something that most people will use to solve all their sleep problems, but it's not going to ever do that for you. So it might solve things in the short term, but your body can get really accustomed to melatonin really quickly. So you'll start needing more melatonin to help you fall asleep. And over time, you're going to be dosing so many milligrams of melatonin that sleep in your body will stop. Your body will stop naturally producing it because it sees it coming in, and now you'll always have a struggle with sleep. Now that obviously that's an extreme situation, but more often than not, melatonin is frivolous. Highly recommend changing your habits around sleep before you would supplement melatonin. And then, in a worst case scenario basis, if after 2 weeks of good sleep routine, good wake up routine, good habits around that, you still have trouble getting to sleep, then you can supplement melatonin. But as a whole, I definitely wouldn't recommend it to the average person. Changing your habits around sleep will have a much better short and long term impact for your sleep than melatonin will. ACV, so apple cider vinegar. This has been all the rage recently. There's even diets designed around apple cider vinegar, which I think is kind of funny to think about because it's just not enjoyable to drink. It's really, if you've ever had apple cider vinegar, you know what I'm talking about. It is harsh for sure. Now, the benefits of apple cider vinegar is they help reduce your appetite. They help with insulin sensitivity, so you're able to digest carbs better. So if you have insulin sensitivity, they can help with you producing more insulin more regularly. When carbs are present in your system, they help with blood glucose regulation, and they help with digestion. Now, the number one thing I would definitely use apple cider vinegar for when I recommend it to a client is going to be for digestion. Just like with glutamine, if someone is having an issue with digestion or having regular bowel movements, or we're going through an elimination diet, and we're trying to work on your gut health as a whole, that's when apple cider vinegar, I would say, is useful. As a day-to-day, take it all the time thing, I definitely wouldn't necessarily say you need it. I would put it on the edge of frivolous and optimal. It's definitely got, like I said, it has a lot of benefits. They've been proven benefits. It's been researched a good number and by well enough people and types of studies to say that this is good to use. But a large majority of the population are going to see greater benefits from a good diet and good general eating habits and sleeping habits that apple cider vinegar won't help you overcome. So prioritizing those are going to be important. If you have digestive issues, I would say apple cider vinegar can be a good aid to help you with digestion, but as a whole, I would put it between frivolous and between optimal. So it's never going to hurt you to have it, but it's definitely not something you need to have either. L-Carnitine. So L-Carnitine is actually an interesting one. This one was something, when I first read about it, when I was a personal trainer a few years ago, I used to recommend L-Carnitine to everybody. It was like this little drink. You take a shot of it every day before you work out, and it's supposed to just help you use fat for fuel. So that was the claim, and it actually does work. But the thing is, like BCAAs, if you're consuming enough protein, L-carnitine comes from red meat as well. It's found usually in meat. So if you're consuming enough of that on a daily basis, you're not going to need this. It is helpful, if you're a plant-based person. Once again, this can be a nice little aid for you, but as a whole, I would consider it frivolous. Again, its main use is just trying to use long chain fatty acids specifically for fuel, as opposed to glucose or sugar for fuel. So it's helpful in that regard. It's I would say it's optimal to frivolous, also on the cusp between those two, because if you're doing a bodybuilding show, this could be helpful for you. If you're plant-based, it could be helpful for you. But for 99% of the population, I'm going to say you'd better off without it. So as a whole, L-carnitine, mostly frivolous, can be optimal sometimes. The last one we're going to talk about is probiotics, and these are also a very popular supplement nowadays. It's a very catch-all term, using probiotics. They're good for your gut. They're going to help you glow. They're going to improve your skin, and all of that is true, but again, it's situational. So for probiotics, it's basically a number of bacteria that are going to help feed your gut. For those of you that don't know or haven't listened to the gut health episode of this podcast, your gut is filled with bacteria. It has its own microbiome of gut culture or bacteria cultures that are, some are good, some are bad. They're going to help with digestion. They're going to help break down your food and make things move along easier for you. So different types of probiotics will do different things. There are like specialty probiotics for specific cases, like certain types of IBS, certain types of IBD, leaky gut. They have like specific probiotics for those diagnoses, whatever the plural of that is. But again, as a whole, for the regular person, if you're getting enough vegetables and you don't have digestive issues, this is cool to have. I would say it's optimal, but it's not necessarily something you need to have. It becomes essential for the people that do have digestive issues. Again, if you have IBS, IBD, diarrhea, leaky gut constantly, like this is a regularly occurring thing for you, I would pair this with glutamine and apple cider vinegar to help with your digestive tract, especially if you're going through an elimination diet. That's when it becomes an essential thing to include in your diet. I would put probiotics first before the other two. Putting them all together can be really helpful as well. It's definitely very individual for which one you're going to need. As a whole, I would say probiotics are optimal. So they're not frivolous, they're optimal. If you got your diet in check and you just want a little extra help with digestion, and you just want to really optimize your health, that is when probiotics become helpful. If you're not doing anything, you're not eating food regularly, you're not getting your servings of vegetables or servings of vegetables and fruit throughout the day, then probiotics aren't really going to help you. It's like putting a band-aid on a leaky roof. It's not going to do much. Now, the cool thing is, there's probiotics and prebiotics. A lot of times, if you get a good green supplement, they will have both of those things. So if you're looking to optimize, if you get a greens powder, it's going to have all those things all together. So it's the vegetables, the probiotics, the micronutrients and antioxidants. It'll have kind of all of those at once. So that's why I put greens powder as like the first optimal thing that people should buy if they're trying to be optimal, is because it does so many things at once. But yeah, so that is all the main supplements. I'm pretty sure I got 20 supplements down, and it's been 58 minutes of talking. So hope you guys found this helpful. Now, going into actual brands that are going to be good for you. Again, if you want to do your own independent research, labdoor.com, examine.com, those are good places to see which brands are reputable, which brands have quality ingredients, and best investment for your money for sure. Now, my general recommendation, what I use for myself, what I use for my clients, for a lot of these, for all of the essential ones and all of the optimal ones, are going to be from Top Notch Nutrition. So Top Notch Nutrition is what I have been using for a long time, and I have been lucky enough to have them become a sponsor of the podcast. I reached out to them because I love their stuff so much and I was using it for so long. And then we were able to make a partnership happen. So if you want any of the supplements that I mentioned, in particular, if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw me raise up a lot of the supplements that I was talking about. The 100% clean whey protein isolate, the greens, of course, is top notch, is most popular. Omega3s, they have like top 3 best omega-3s I've ever used, to be honest with you. Vitamin D3 as well, great potent stuff. And they have a hydrate, which I like to use. This is more of an optimal thing because it has glutamine, it has electrolytes, it has vitamin C, which we didn't talk about, but is also something that everyone, could make use of once in a while. And then their pre-workout, it's a low stimulant pre-workout as well. So Top Notch Nutrition has pretty all-encompassing base for all of the essentials and a lot of the optimal stuff as well. Definitely recommend them. If you haven't tried them, you will love them and you won't go back. So if you are interested in trying out Top Notch Nutrition, highly recommend going to them for your essential vitamin needs and your optimal vitamin needs, if that's something, if you got your nutrition in check. Now, if you're trying to try them out, today is your lucky day. You can get them, any of their products, for 15% off if you use code STUPIDFIT at checkout. Stupid is with 2 O's. It's always with 2 O's. STOOPIDFIT. There's going to be a link that automatically gives you 15% off at checkout in the description below in the show notes. So feel free to check that out. But otherwise, guys, I really appreciate you guys sitting with me here in the last hour talking about supplements. Just one more reminder that supplements are not something to rely on. They're there to fill in the gaps of your diet. None of these things, even the essential ones, are going to make a huge change in your day-to-day life. The essential ones will make a change, a noticeable change, but they're not going to make a massive change in your quality of life, in your recovery from training, in your fat loss, unless you make the necessary changes in your diet to do that, in your nutrition program to do that. So that is always going to be the go-to. But otherwise, make sure you check out Top Notch Supplements for all of your supplement needs, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.